the podcast of Townsville, on this week's episode of Cartoon Buffoons. I'm your host, Wyatt, and who is here with me today, as always?
Hello, I'm Morgan. I'm like him, but with different pronouns.
And who is our very special guest for today's episode?
Hey, I'm Nicktendo, and very happy to be here. I don't know.
That's good.
Yeah.
And we're here to talk about the classic Cartoon Network show, Powerpuff Girls. It feels like recently in our podcast, we've been taking a lot of L's, and we've been doing a lot of things that are a little bit contentious with, some people. Like, we've been very mean to like the past few things that we've talked about. So I'll just get it out of the way here. I'm very glad that we're talking about a show that most people can agree is like pretty good. I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah, hot take.
Yeah.
Powerpuff Girls, pretty good show.
Yeah, because we haven't done Johnny Bravo yet, just due to scheduling stuff, and so we did like the pilots, like the first couple of pilots right in a row, which most of them were very bad, and then we did Flintstones on the Rocks as like let's just watch this one night and then talk about it, and that sucked. And then we did Cow and Chicken, and we were pretty mean to that show, though we did enjoy I Am Weasel like a little bit more than Cow and Chicken. So I'm just glad, because I'm like, talked about this with Morgan last night, that's what I'm the most worried about, is the like us coming after shows that are like beloved childhood favorites and being like, actually this wasn't very good, like us adults didn't enjoy it that much. So I can say, like maybe it's just me, but I loved revisiting the show, and I've also like revisited it throughout my adult years, like the past few years. Basically, like whenever HBO Max came out, that was like one of the go-to shows that I would go and like watch some episodes of. But Nick, you're the guest. I want to know what's your history with this show, and also what is your history with Cartoon Network in general and the entire like ecosystem of shows?
Okay, let's see. So I want to say, if you're talking like first memories of the channel, oh man, I think the first time was, I want to say like 2007, 2008. Let's say like early 2008. There was a Courage the Cowardly Dog marathon where they were just playing a bunch of Courage episodes when my family was stuck in a hotel room in New York City, and I don't remember why we were there, but Courage was just like the weirdest thing I had ever seen. I have no memories of it. The only thing I remember is, and I think I remember seeing the episode later, a couple of years later, the tree with a live action face.
Yeah.
Clutch Cargo superimposed live action face.
Yeah.
And I remember they just played it over and over again. So that was my first impression of Cartoon Network. But then I would, funny enough, it wasn't any of the comedy shows. If you know me, that's what I talk about on YouTube. A lot of stuff from a lot of 2010 shows, a lot of newer comedy cartoons. But it was Batman the Brave and the Bold and Star Wars the Clone Wars, because my dad showed me Batman. My dad showed me Star Wars, and now, it was like, oh, now they're making cartoons of these things. Not knowing the whole lineage of, I'd seen like the Star Wars prequels, but I didn't know what the Batman the Brave and the Bold was like. Oh, this is the 60s DC throwback show.
Yeah.
I didn't have the context for that. But it wasn't until Adventure Time, regular show Mad, that solid Monday night block, 2010. Oh, and Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, that too. That really drew me into the network. And so from then on, I was kind of hooked.
We got to go back. I mean, I guess we are going. I guess that's what Cartoon Network thought too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We gotta go back, and then
we
all of the new shows they just announced at the time recording this were all like spin-off of regular show, spin-off of Adventure Time. Like they're just doing kind of.
Damn, we're learning the wrong lessons.
Yeah.
We're learning the
Yeah.
wrong lessons.
Like, make shows that are like that are as good as those. Just you don't need to make the same show.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with some friends about Genndy Tartakovsky, and it's like, well, it's awesome that he keeps getting all these opportunities, but it would be nice if we could find this generation's Genndy Tartakovsky. I'm sure they've gotten shows, but no one's, I can't think of a show creator that's emerged in the past 5-10 years with multiple things under their belt that have been remotely successful and that isn't like struggling to get something on the air. I'm sure you can think of examples, but
no, I truly can't unless it's like kind of those work a day sort of like the people that are making like toy shows or whatever, so like Man of Action or whatever, like those kind of people. Whereas like it's crazy to me that the 2010s was such a who's who of like here's the people that made the cartoons. Here's Penn Ward. Here's Rebecca Sugar. Here's Alex Hirsch. And they've all made, Penn Ward has at least made Midnight Gospel, but everybody else has made one show and then never made, Alex Hirsch, I don't even know, wasn't he doing something for Netflix or did that
He is. I think part of the issue is that with these everything greenlit, this whole big boom of 2019, 2020 cartoons was just, you get 10 episodes, maybe you get 10 more because they ordered 20, and that's it, and that's the cultural footmark. And man, these are some of the best cartoons of the past 5-10 years, but no one will remember them because they dropped all the episodes one day. There's this is something I want to do a video about, and Craig McCracken is involved, which is about how in 2018 Netflix had this is the future of animation, and it's like, here's all these they're teasing Kid Cosmic, Maya and the Three, Battle Kitty, Centaur World, all these great fantastic things. And then they all dropped in the next couple years and no one ever talks about them. But they had this huge campaign about how Netflix was going to be the future of animation. And they let everything die. I have the video saved on my laptop from 2018. And I'm like, oh, thank God I saved it, because it's kind of an embarrassing PR piece to look back on now.
I think the worst thing is that the way Netflix is doing stuff now with the weekly releases, that could work now. But I don't know. I feel like, oh man, I think seeing how some cartoons are getting more popular again right now, I feel like cartoons more than anything needs a weekly release. There's something very specific about the feeling of booting up and sitting down to watch a new episode of a cartoon, but also having episodes be in rotation when you're not worried about it,
I remember being when Adventure Time and Steven Universe and stuff were airing, and looking at the episode descriptions for future episodes and hanging on every sentence and letting my mind go wild of oh my God, what's Amethyst doing in this episode? I'm always thinking about what Amethyst is doing, but that's besides the point. But I don't know, I miss that, even when I became somebody who made videos on YouTube and was paying more attention to cartoons and that kind of stuff, I had lost that sense of curiosity, with Owl House and Amphibia and stuff. I wasn't I was just sort of letting the episodes come as they, as they're going. I didn't look at the upcoming episode list or whatever and sort of focus on them or think about oh, what could this episode be about? It just sort of, that culture had been bred out of me because of stuff like Netflix, because of going and getting all the episodes at once and sort of going through the season and being I can kind of see where the season is going just from a single glance. You can just sort of look on Netflix and see all the episodes and then read the descriptions and know the arc of where the season's going. And me, stuff like City of Ghosts and Centaur World and Battle Kitty are among the greatest shows that we've seen in the past decade. But you're right, nobody's going to remember. That's what's unfortunate about that is I can something as weird and unique as Battle Kitty being forgotten is a tragedy just because of its like its placement in, you know, the history of Netflix, and its like position as like basically the one earnest try that they did at the like, what if we made a show that was also a video game kind of thing. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm on a tangent here.
Getting back to like my history with Cartoon Network and everything. So I think so. Actually, talking about getting all like the episode lists. You know how they would post like all the Adventure Time upcoming episode titles, like a whole season, like season 4, season 5 before they would air. So I became like really like I would in a common pastime, and I guess this transition into doing YouTube would be going on Wikipedia and looking up what are some upcoming things Cartoon Network is doing, what are these upcoming episodes. And one of them was, there's going to be an anniversary special for Powerpuff Girls, and it was Dance Pantsed. It was the CGI one, which is pretty cool looking. But it's it's a bit of a like a style over substance kind of special. But anyway, I'm like, okay, well, I know Powerpuff Girls is a pretty big deal. I should probably like look into this. And this was like around the time Cartoon Network did that like 20th anniversary bumper. The big celebration, and they were doing Cartoon Planet, and they had a little bit, like, here's a little block of, we'll show Kids Next Door, we'll show Powerpuff Girls, we'll show Dexter, we'll show Foster's, and so that was kind of my introduction to a lot of those shows. Cool. So, and some of them were also on Netflix. The first 3 seasons of Powerpuff Girls were on Netflix, so I started watching those leading up to Dance Pantsed, and I was hooked. It was a weird case where I think it was like around the time I was born, my dad was watching the show, and he had like Chemical Extraction, the PS1 game. So that was also the first time I had ever heard of it. Just seeing it, being like, what's this? You have Spyro the Dragon, Monopoly, and Chemical Extraction, and that was his PS1 game collection. So like he showed me a few episodes. So yeah, and then I bought the 10th anniversary DVD set when it was affordable. I think it just got re-released. But the one with like double-sided discs, it's like 6. It's really bulky. But the behind the scenes documentary on that thing is fantastic.
I gotta get that's something I always wanted but never had the money basically to like get that. So I really do want to, like, especially now that, you know, the streaming rights and everything are kind of weird. Thankfully Powerpuff Girls is on Netflix, so, and most people have.
And it's Netflix, also been on Netflix for a long fucking time. Like, I remember, like, watching my niece and nephew, and, like, you know that thing kids do where they just want to watch the same thing over and over again? Sure. I hit the point where if I heard Mater's voice again from Cars, I was maybe going to explode into chunks of human meat. So I was like, let's go. I'm just going to make you guys a little sampler. And I just put on, like a few episodes of every cartoon that they had on there. And I remember Powerpuff Girls and Ed, Edd n Eddy for a long time was also always on there. Yeah. And I was like, it was just nice.
Man, that brings me back to the days of, like, you know, before Pirate Bay or whatever, like when you would just download things on like LimeWire and you would get like 2 or 3, you get like whatever episodes they put up there. So it would be like the same like 3 or 4 episodes of Ed, Edd n Eddy that I just watched like constantly when I was like 9 years old. Just like constantly being like, oh yeah, you know, here's the episode where Eddie becomes a kaiju and starts attacking, you know, like an alien type creature and is like sealing people to the walls. Like there are just certain episodes of that and like that I just have such a fond memory of because of
it's the ones you got
over and over again. And that was the thing. This I could talk about this because we'll never talk about SpongeBob, but on there was like when I was moving to the city, you know, because I used to live out in the country, and then I moved to the city. Just like big city greens. But yeah, but yeah, there was when I was like staying at my grandma's house in between moving, we had like a VHS tape that had like 3 episodes of SpongeBob, and they were like new, so it was like season 3 episodes, and so there's like a few episodes from season 3 that is just like so drilled into my mind that I'm just like, I absolutely like the episode. I think it's from season 3 where they like kill the Patty inspector and have to bury his body.
Yeah, that one's.
And then the like Sandy is like in hibernation, and they're like, snowball fighting and everything. But yeah, I don't know, just having those on hand. Morgan, what about you? What's your like history with the show?
Powerpuff Girls. Okay, my earliest memory of Powerpuff Girls is really sad.
Okay.
So I like have the like extreme anxiety when I was a kid. It's taken care of now. I'm medicated and all that stuff. But my most vivid memory of Powerpuff Girls is I was a kid and there was an episode, and all I could think about was how I was certain my house would be drowned in a flood because it was raining, and it wasn't going to happen. And all my mom told me to do was like, hey, just watch TV, relax. Me, I'm also like 7, having a giant panic attack about this stuff. And I just remember watching Powerpuff Girls, and it was just the only thing that like could get my mind uncentered on everything that was happening.
Yeah.
And I just started watching cartoons a lot, but Powerpuff Girls is such a special show to me because it is one of my favorite ones growing up that I never revisited. I went to Ed, Edd n Eddy a bunch. I went to Foster's Home a bunch. I just never went back to Powerpuff Girls. Same with Dexter's Lab, actually, until we rewatched it for the thing.
Yeah.
I don't know why I never went back. And a lot of my humor and stuff is built from it because, like, I think, like, anyone who knows me knows I begrudgingly am deeply into superhero comics. I also love tokusatsu. And yeah, a lot of that probably stems from this. I think a lot of like the everyday things you absorb in those medias, I probably got my first exposure to in Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the like tropes and stuff that exist in Powerpuff Girls also exist in, Kamen Rider or superhero comic books or like Ultimate, all of that stuff. Like it's very much forward with like the inspiration for it. And also, side thing, before I started like actually drawing, I think I probably drew stuff from this show first.
Yeah.
Of any cartoon I watched.
Yeah.
Because it's just the art style's so good and
it's so simple and iconic and everything like that. There was like a lot of like just watching these episodes now, I was like, holy crap! There's so much like good art design, like little things that are so. That like I want to like that I can see anybody wanting to like look at it and like take and adapt to their own art, just like looking at it.
Like I talked about it last night on Twitter. I was like, yeah, I'm resisting every urge not to just redesign the Powerpuff Girls just for fun. Also, gotta say, when it comes to making shows that have the greatest backgrounds on Earth, Craig McCracken might just be the GOAT. Literally, anytime he makes a cartoon, I can sometimes just pause and look at the background and feel so good.
Yeah.
Like, I just love...
Yeah. Craig McCracken...
I love the...
Yeah, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Continue. No, continue.
No, that's what I was going to say. There's a thing in Powerpuff Girls where there's an episode, I was watching it with Kathy, I had to pause it, because, like, they drew a couch, the rough shape of a couch, right? And they just put a singular block of color that barely matched up with the couch. And they did it for all the furniture. But it read, and like, I don't know, the house was supposed to be like the 60s perfect nuclear family. And it felt like those paintings you would see from then. Yeah. And same thing with like the very 70s aesthetic of like the girls and stuff. It's just, man, he's so good at doing, like, it's funny that like, it's so hard as an artist to get across so much visual information with limited amount of lines. And he's like, and like him and his team are so like, they're so fucking good at it. Like he gets so much, and like then you go on the flip side and like you see stuff like Kid Cosmic where it's the opposite, where the backgrounds have like 1,000 lines everywhere going on, but it still gives across the same amount of information. Just I don't know.
That is something I really appreciate about Craig is how different in tone and style all the shows are. Like like Foster's Home is quite different from Powerpuff Girls, and then Wander is different from that, and then Kid Cosmic. Like, you would think Kid Cosmic would be kind of a retread of Wander, because it's also
he's
space,
not
but it's
ideas.
like, oh, this is like Jack Kirby, Cosmic Marvel, you know, that's what that's going for, whereas Wander is like, you know, like it's Looney Tunes, but it's also like Dr. Seuss or Muppets and like psychedelia and that kind of thing. Like, it feels like it's in a different style, like, index than Kid Cosmic. And then, like, yeah, even with the two shows like back to back, like Foster's Home it has like a lot of style, but it's not that same like Art Deco, like 50s kind of minimalist that Powerpuff Girls is.
Like it's almost like Foster's feels like a children's book in a way that I think is very interesting and good. And
it's like Golden Book, Mary Blair, Disney illustration.
I think the thing about Foster's that's really cool, before we go back to Powerpuff Girls, is I also like how flat Foster's is. So much of art is trying to make yourself not look physically flat, but I think the flatness of how everything looks in Foster's really does sell the storybookness of it. Like, I feel like every scene and episode is a page I'm reading.
I think that helps it like age better, because like,
you know, it does,
right, because it's one of the first Flash shows.
Because like, for example, with Milo Pony, like, first season when, you know, Lauren Faust was involved, looks a little bit more like Foster's Home. Like, it like, some of it has aged pretty bad, but but like, in general it looks more in line with that. But like, as the show went on and it got like the rigs got more complex and they tried to make it more three-dimensional and everything, it like kind of looks like, in some ways it looks better, but in some ways it looks a lot worse, or it's like aged a lot worse. And that's not to say that like Flash rigs or whatever, you know, like those kind of animation rigs will never be good, but
no, they can't. You gotta design, like, the things that you have to like. What Foster's does is, like, you gotta design your show for what you are using. It's a full. I think that's why the transition from like cell to like fully digital. I think Craig McCracken is a guy who understands, like, him and his team understand, like, what are we using to make this cartoon?
Yeah, like, he doesn't feel hamstrung by his like the material that he's using, which is like kind of like, there are people in the industry that do feel like, oh, I'm being held back by digital, or I'm being held back by, you know, this new form of animation that we have to use for cost cutting measures. They are going for a style, or they have this specific style, and they're trying to make it look as good as possible, or do what they've always done in it, or
it's just not possible.
Yeah. But I remember like Lauren talking about, in like a Creative Block episode, which is a podcast, that like with Foster's, they would like, they learned so many shortcuts out of necessity, like, in making a show that was in Flash, so they applied that forward to stuff like Wander Over Yonder, where it's like, there's so many things that you can do to like get around to the limitations and still make it look really good. And that's like a very interesting, you know, I don't know, like a thing that you don't get when you're sort of like sitting on your laurels, or just like
begrudging
fighting against the new wave and everything. So, but real quick, just to talk about my own history with Powerpuff Girls, like, I was a little boy, so there was a little bit of the,
that's
like,
cringe.
I don't want this, it's for girls, but secretly, you know, I really enjoyed it when I was like 4 or 5. And I remember distinctly spending a day with my dad and like telling him a secret and being like, I actually think the Powerpuff Girls is really funny. And then he's like, he was trying to be like a good dad, and was saying like, yeah, of course, and Mojo Jojo, he's the best character. And I'm like, yeah, you know what?
You know, he was trying to appease you, but he was also spitting, you know? He wasn't lying to you.
Thanks for making it about the man dad.
Yeah, so but honestly, like, I'll say this, I've made my love of Craig McCracken's shows obvious. I think he's like characters like Mojo and Hater are like some of the funniest characters. They're just so funny and so well developed, and so like it makes sense to me that Powerpuff Girls has a ton of really iconic, cool, visually distinct villains.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Mojo stands above them all, like as like the villain of the show, and it's like it's just because he's fucking funny. And I went through and I watched a bunch of episodes from each season, and like every single time he showed up, I felt like I was like spoiling myself. I was like, oh, I should give a different villain a chance, because it's just like the deck is so stacked in his favor in my eyes. That being said, the Beatles episode, which is like, that's one that I remember watching as a kid, getting that there was a joke that I didn't understand to the episode, yes. And then watching it later with like a knowledge of the Beatles and like laughing my ass off at how stupid of an like
it's a really dumb episode. It's good. To this day, the end goof of her taking off her clothes and being a normal, terrifying monkey, I think might go down as like this is really funny. Mm. What was up? What was going on, Craig?
Yeah. Moko Jono, the
Jesus,
the monkey.
Man, now that you're saying it out loud, I'm like, it's not a very good pun, but it's so funny.
It's not. I think the thing is though, like you say, that's Mojo for you. Like you're like, oh, I'm spoiling myself a Mojo episode. That's me with Princess.
Oh my god, I fucking love her so much too. She's so horrible. She's so funny.
Not to be me and be fully like, oh, my girl boss time, but she's so fucking funny. Oh my god, because she very rarely do they ever throw her into jail later on. They just kind of walk away. Yeah, because she's just annoying as shit, and they're like, who gives a fuck? Like, we're just gonna leave her alone. And they're like, it's so good, it's so funny. She just, her design, her voice.
Yeah, because she's like Orphan Annie plus Madeline.
Yes.
But then, right, with the facial design, it is Madeline. I don't think I ever picked up on that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like the like adorable redheaded orphan girl, but she's actually a rich, like stuck up girl. Like she isn't an orphan or anything. And then like, yeah, she's like a horrible monster. And it's like just really funny. Like, and she's like, I don't know. It's interesting because, like, obviously the Powerpuff Girls are very distinct designs. Like, they look the most out of place out of everybody, but they still, like, fit into the world. And then, like, she also looks kind of out of place, but in the sense that it's, like, yeah, she looks like a character from, like, a 40s comic or something like that.
But the thing is, though, if you put Princess next to the other normal humans, I think she fits better than the Powerpuff Girls. They somehow did a design of, like, let's design a fourth Powerpuff Girl who is obviously just a normal human. Yeah. And I'm like, they could have gone really far and, like, a goof on that. But no, I think the thing that makes it work so well is that, like, people are usually angular in a way the Powerpuff Girls aren't. Mm-hmm. So I love that, like, her dress and everything is still very sharp. Her feet are very sharp. She has articulated fingers. Like, they're like, we're going to do small stuff to make her stand out as, like, this is not a Powerpuff Girl. This is just some rich John that's annoying. And I'm like, yes, it's great. And
I wanted to say that they're kind of, something I've always liked about the show is that there kind of isn't a standard for what a normal human being should look like in Townsville. It's just Hanna-Barbera-esque humans is how I see them. And that's something I always thought was cool about the production design of the show, which is besides the house, the town hall, Mojo Jojo's lair, and maybe a few, and the park, like maybe a few other random locations. Whenever the Powerpuff Girls go to Townsville, they completely kind of redesign everything. I can't think of... There aren't a lot of iconic places where they fight, and there aren't a lot of side characters, any of the non-tertiary characters are just random civilians, and there isn't like, oh, here's the model pack of Townsville citizens that you're always drawing from and always seeing. No, it's always a different design every episode. Sometimes I remember there's this one episode, I think it's like 3 girls and a monster, and I remember it because every single building is white. In that one, they fight like this giant orange kaiju. And I remember it's just the kind of thing where I think that's cool. And it's because they're going for the UPA, very simple geometric style that you can redesign everything every episode and not reuse a lot of backgrounds.
Yeah. That's the same with like the Fuzzy Lumpkins, like his first episode. Like all the people in Townsville are like they're all like UPA commercial, like 50s commercial characters. Like none of them they're like almost nothing like other Townsville like citizens that you see, you know, like later in the season or like even like earlier episodes in the season. It's just like so stylistic to throw the contrast of like, here's this creature that looks like a big Muppet guy who's like a pissed off like libertarian with a gun and like he's beating up out the elderly and everything like that, and it's like, so it has to look like a candy or cereal commercial from like, you know, the 50s or 60s, so that it's like such a beautiful idyllic thing that he's like coming in and fucking up because he just like hates everybody and wants everybody to get off his property. What were you saying, Morgan?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I also love the use of color for Townsville to get across bits. I love the opener of like the episode where Buttercup won't shower because we go like, what a beautiful, clean, white city. It's great. And then once Buttercup is no longer showering, the city stays this perpetual brown. They just take the color palette out and just go, it's now brown now until she showers and we can go back to white. And I just love stuff like that. It's so good. It's funny. Townsville almost reminds me, like, I'm trying to figure out where it is. Like, I know it's America, right? But sometimes I'm like, is this Japan?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very, it's a very San Francisco type, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, it is interesting seeing, you know, especially because, like, I feel, you know, we talked about with Dexter's Lab that's, like, some of the nerdiest. Like, I still kind of think Dexter's Lab is, like, way nerdier than Powerpuff Girls, because Powerpuff Girls is a little bit more focused on its own sort of world and tone, whereas Dexter is like
Dexter references.
Dexter is like just like Mecha is cool and whatever, you know, like stuff like that. It's like, which is great, like it's hilarious, but it is like its identity is sort of references, whereas this it's has references, but it's all these things feel more uniquely Powerpuff Girls. Like Professor Utonium talked about before, he's like, oh, he's like the guy who created Astro Boy, but he's also, you know, like just this sort of 50s dad kind of thing, you know, like he's a lot of, you know, he's not any one specific exact character
he's a
type.
Bunch.
Yeah, always, this is something they kind of talk about in that behind the scenes documentary on the DVD, but how a lot of the villains are kind of like one thing mixed with another for the inspiration. Like, Gangry Gang are mob bosses meets Fat Albert, something like that.
That's a good pull.
I gotta say, I thought that the Amoeba Boys bit would stop being funny, and not only was I wrong, I was stupid.
I was also like, the Amoeba Boys were the only villains before revisiting it for this podcast. We were like, man, I don't really remember their episodes a lot. Were they really that funny? And I watched the one, they have a bit in the birthday episode where all the villains have these different, they send these different gifts to the Powerpuff Girls. And the Amoeba Boys, their gift is they get them voodoo dolls, but they just give them the dolls and they forgot all the pins and needles separately. And
I got the pins right here.
Yeah. They got the pins and they sent the girls the dolls. And I'm like, okay, crisis averted. they're funny.
This,
Yeah.
just like this, like you're not prepared for the evilness of August.
Yeah, and
You
I think just having characters that talk like mobsters are that's always, or like 40s gangsters.
And they're amoebas.
Yeah, and they're amoebas. It's just generally funny.
Yeah. I think like
I don't think I could make that joke if you put me in front of a typewriter for 4 days. I could never make the Amoeba Boys as a joke. It takes a lot of just specific kind of thinking to get there.
Yeah, I feel like this is a weird poll, I guess, but like, you know, all these people were sort of like working hand in hand, and were like involved in, you know, fingers in the pie. But like, I feel like an evolution towards maybe a more cynical evolution of the Powerpuff Girl villains is like Aqua Teen, because you get like rogues gallery of like weird freaks with like specific jokes, but it's like so much more dumb and less like coherent of a world that is still kind of trying to be, you know, like a real world. Like the Moonanites are reoccurring characters and everything, you know, like that kind of thing. The Ghost of Christmas Past from the future, like that kind of stuff. Like, to me, whenever you think of, like, I think of like the Ministry of Pain, like those seem like a one-off, like Aqua Teen sort of like villains or whatever.
So I talked about it. We've watched a lot of stuff so far. Not a lot, but we watched a good bit of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Ministry of Pain episode, and there's another episode I'll talk about in a second, might be the funniest cartoon episode we've watched so far.
Yeah.
I was in legitimate pain at every bit. Because, I don't know, I love Golden Age comic books, right?
Yeah.
I love them so much. And the whole bit, I love like this, what's your name? I'm Mastermind, and this is Cohort. I'm like, and Counterpart.
Yeah.
These are just these... It's such an underrated joke, and just, I don't know, something about just the no, and this old man running in slow motion
and
for a minute-long bit.
The suit-up scene, you know, like them, like, I feel like it's like, okay, it's mildly funny, you know, they're putting on the clothes slowly, but as soon as he gets to like zipping up the suit and then like his like flabby, like he has to tuck in his tits. It's just like.
The joke that killed me was like this. Oh, hello, little girls. Do you want me to sing you a song?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like
so
whoever,
funny.
yeah, like whatever they were going for with Lefty was just like, I was there for it. It was very funny.
I'll give homophobia a pass exactly once because it's funny. Okay, this is your Pride Month special pass from me. Craig McCracken.
That's another thing. Like, I feel like him was probably the first time I was like made aware of like drag culture or like a drag queen type character. You know, so it's like, or just like any kind of gender non-conforming like character as a kid. And I. Yeah, I've talked about it with Nikki in the past, that it's like there are certain characters that feel like offensive stereotypes, but there is also, like, for somebody who feels like they're stuck in the middle of a gender spectrum, there is a sort of like pride in seeing these characters that are so like contradictory as far as that goes. And
no, absolutely, yeah, I think like I have even the ones that are like really badly done, I've identified with every like shitty lesbian thing in a cartoon, like every like shitty like this is a like, for lack of a better term, bull dyke character. I'm like, you know, this is fucked up, but also she's a little T. I'm kind of she's just like me for real. Like I'm like feeling it. Like I gotta give credit there.
The one classic Powerpuff Girls thing that I think you could consider kind of iffy, but I think is genuinely really funny, is there's an intro where with the narrator at the beginning of an episode where Mojo is thrown in jail, and this really buff guy gives him a look, and then the narrator says, "Love is in the air," and it's a pretty iffy joke, but it's pretty funny.
Now, the other episode I got to talk about that was maybe the funniest thing I've ever watched. I'm becoming a Harold Smith stan account.
Oh yeah.
I can't tell you how funny that whole episode is.
Yeah.
And I think the sleeper hit is that I think his son is funnier than him. Because every time we, like, Christine Cavanaugh, you are my queen. Thank you. Every time we just like him going through his like this, no one understands me.
Yeah.
I hate you.
We should talk about the voices because, like, I feel like
the voice cast.
Yeah. Like the three girls themselves, you know, are very like it's a who's who, except for Blossom, who is like Kathy Cavadini is like a pretty unsung voice actress, and she's not like that many lead roles in a lot of things. She's very good as Blossom. I feel like
she's fantastic as Blossom. Like, maybe the strongest voice, honestly.
Yeah, and then of course Tara Strong as Bubbles, and then E.G. Daily as Buttercup, which is like a really good pick because of how different it is from Tommy. You know, like that's kind of like her most iconic role before Buttercup, but like I don't know. I feel like go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I feel like this show is also, it was a breath of fresh air because and this is not me picking a fight. I'm not being mean. I forget that Tara Strong's a good voice actress so often nowadays because she's in so many things now. She just sucks.
Yeah,
that I'm like, damn, she can actually go. You know,
you hear her as Harley Quinn, and you're like, oh god.
But
then you hear her in an old cartoon, and you're like, oh, you know, this is like pretty good. You know, so that's like, yeah, her as Bubbles is so funny. And like same thing with like
I'm gonna be the prettiest girl at the party.
Like Jennifer Hale, who is a person that I have complicated feelings about as well.
As Princess Miss Keen, oh my god,
yeah, so funny. Like she's just so funny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is also, I think this probably before SpongeBob. This was the Tom Kenny cartoon. Because he's the mayor and the narrator, and he kills everything. I forgot how much the narrator was in the show, like helping transition, not even helping transition, kind of just filling dead air sometimes, which is funny. And we can, you know, there's also Tom Kane as the professor, and we didn't even talk about the villains, but I do really value how much silence and nothing happening is in the show.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they use space to make the joke so well.
Yeah, a lot in the early seasons. It was only rewatching it a lot of early episodes and watching a couple later episodes that I realized, oh, some of these later ones don't work because there's too much music. There's music scoring all these parts where usually it would just be complete silence. Only a couple characters moving.
Yeah.
And I forgot how a lot of Powerpuff Girls episodes are paced in ways where they draw out the conflict until there's 30 seconds left in the episode. And because the girls can move at the speed of sound, once they're allowed to solve the problem and save the day, they will. And you can have really abrupt endings because every episode will end with, so once again the day is saved. And it's like, well, that'll put a neat little bow on everything.
The Ministry of Pain episode where it's like the entire time Blossom's like, don't worry girls, I got a plan so we don't have to fight them back, and then like it ends, all the people involved like get put into the hospital. All these elderly people are like injured and put into the hospital, and the girls are just like watching TV, and Buttercup and Bubbles are just like angrily looking at Blossom.
They're like, we could have just beat up these old people and it would have gone fine.
Like that would have been legitimately the kinder thing to do for everybody involved. Would you just like put them in jail immediately? But you know, so that's very funny. I did want to mention with the like quietness, like I feel like especially like season 1. Where they're sort of like finding the tone and the humor. There's like that episode where the Gang Green Gang are introduced, and Buttercup has a crush on the leader, and like she's silent for the entire episode. She's just like nodding her head or smiling and things like that. And that's like so interesting to put that character in like that position as like a, you know, like a naive, doe-eyed kind of fangirl,
right?
That isn't like saying anything or like you know, have,
because like loudmouth Loudmouth is how you could describe Buttercup, especially who she develops into. Yeah, but I realized. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Morgan.
I was gonna say last thing about the silence. I think rewatching Dexter also showed me that Dexter's another cartoon where sometimes characters' footsteps with no music is a joke.
Right. Yes.
Sometimes existing with no music is a joke, and I think that's why Big Chris does such a shit job on doing both of these shows. I'm gonna get into it.
No, the one example I always think of, it's from Foster's, which is the very first joke in that show is Mac and Blue rising from the back of a couch, and you hear the violin sound effect, which is prevalent in all three of these shows, Dexter's, Powerpuff, and then the eyes moving back and forth, the whoosh, whoosh, which are that's the Craig McCracken cartoon sound effects suite. Those two right there, I think is there's you can find those sound effects in every 90s and 2000s episode he ever did,
and they're funny.
They're funny. Yeah. The sound design is fantastic on this show. It's taking a lot of the big Hanna-Barbera sound effects and turning them into action hits. And I think the show is synonymous with the sound the girls make when they take off or when they hit someone or use their powers or something like that. That's in the core identity of the show, and that's really good sound design.
Yeah, for sure. The show has such because with Dexter, it's there, but it's not there's Dexter's scuffing footsteps and
right.
Dee Dee the squishing lumbering footsteps. And you have that, and then you have Mandark laughing and all that stuff. You have these iconic sounds or sound bites. But Powerpuff Girls, you have the city of Townsville, and you have once again the day is saved, and you have all these sound effects that we talked about. The soundscape of the show is just so well defined. I think what you're talking about, that's my one problem, or that's my biggest problem, I'll say, with the Powerpuff Girls rule, which I think is overall pretty funny, but it is so they are condensing 40 minutes of content into 22. They are intentionally sort of filling all of the dead air just to get a special done as much as possible. Whereas to me the funniest moment in it is when they when Mojo makes it to the end, they get the key before him, and then he just has this very calm accepting all right, you won,
yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, and they draw that out.
I'm done.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest, Powerpuff Girls Rule is one of my favorite episodes because I love the manic energy. I don't think there isn't any other episode that matches it, and it's one of those things where you're cramming so much into one episode that it makes it very rewatchable. It's also one of the silliest episodes. They really push the expressions, they push how silly the characters can be, which is something I realized starts in the show. I was watching season 2, season 3 episodes, and this is probably not what they were going through, but I can kind of see the writers, the board artists, getting bored with a character like the professor and being well, since we made him so stern and all-knowing, having bits where let's make him silly. Let's have him behave, make him a little childish, and give him pushing a lot of his expressions, eat your pee, Professor. Is a good example because he's such a square character in both the way he looks and the way he acts.
I was on the floor just Chewie that, swallow. He's
right.
Okay, just swallows and just also Professor. Every so often the Professor gets a weird bit. You're really right. I love the Blanky episode where Professor this. Oh, you don't need the blanket anymore? Okay, I am a great professor. I am a great professor. I am a great scientist. Just rubbing his face on. I'm yes.
Yeah, I do really like Powerpuff Girls Rule. It has the scene with Mojo singing "Everybody Wants to Rule the World."
Which the
perfect.
Best scene in the entire show.
Yeah, that's the best use of fucking licensed music I've ever seen in a
right,
because it's it perfectly fits the mood. It's like actually kind of like, oh, you feel bad for him, but it's hilarious because it's Mojo Jojo. It's Mojo Jojo singing, and there's like chaos happening all around him as he's like calmly in his pink t-shirt, like walking like down to the bus. Like it's just so. It feels like, you know, Powerpuff Girls at its peak is like a really smart, really funny show, but this definitely feels like like an episode made by the Craig McCracken that's about to make Wander Over Yonder.
Yes. Yeah. I've definitely had that same thought with how Mojo Jojo in that episode is proto Lord Hater in terms of amping up the energy instead of being a little more kind of like trapped in his own head, which is how I would describe a lot of Mojo. There's one episode, I went out of my way to rewatch a couple episodes, but otherwise I was just kind of picking a random number. HBO Max got rid of the shuffle feature, which I thought would have been really useful when you're like, Wyatt was like, watch a bunch of random episodes. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And then I had to go to a different random number generator. But there's this one season 4 episode called Forced Kin, which is the one where the girls are fighting this weird anonymous alien that matches all their superpowers. They don't know what to do. So like, okay, Mojo, teach us how to be evil. And first of all, the carnage of the city of Townsville in that episode and in a few others, as long as you don't show people getting hurt, you can kind of destroy as many buildings as you would like. Yeah. I guess that's how they kind of got around with having the entire city get brutally destroyed. But I love that episode because Mojo's getting frustrated with the villain matching all his moves, and he completely loses it, and he taps into some sort of like superpower reserved where he throws hands with this giant like Transformers mech and brings him to the ground, and it's never brought up, it's never explained. He just gets so furious that he's able to gain super strength. And it's I think it's brilliant because he helps save the day. And he's dumbfounded by that discovery, and they don't need to explain it because it's funny. It works.
Yeah, I also think that episode is funny because it's like it's a Fantastic Four reference, which is a weird one in there. Because like the bad guys Galactus and like they work with Mojo and they work with Doctor Doom.
Yeah,
it's like a whole Fantastic Four reference, and just I don't. That's why I think what makes this show work. And like it's like, and Dexter still works, but Dexter's very much going for direct references. This show's going for more visual vibes.
Yeah.
Of specific things, like of things like they were reading or absorbing at the time.
Oh yeah,
that's just so interesting.
There's a big one in Mouse, which when I was in California last fall, I'm like, oh, the big grocery store chain Ralph's is exactly that's exactly what this is.
Yeah, like
I didn't know it was a Powerpuff Girls. What the Powerpuff Girls was referencing. Until I went to a grocery store in California. So I don't know. Go ahead.
I guess one last thing. Man, the music in the show. Whenever they have like a song with lyrics or like a character singing, I watched the episode with Robin, which might be my favorite episode, even though it wasn't the funniest. Because one, I don't know, I like episodes where the characters get to be kids. I think the team that worked on this cartoon is so good at writing children that every episode where the Powerpuff Girls interact with normal kids is a certifiable banger. It's why the broccoli episode is so good. It's why every single episode with Mitch is good. Whenever they're just kids, they feel like kids in a way that this show was never grounded, in a way that makes my brain go, this fucking rules. So them having like a normal friend who's like sad that they gotta save the world. And the song Signal in the Sky, I think about it all the time. It's just gonna be in my head all the time, like how deeply Beatles it is and everything.
I think that what you're talking about is why like Princess is such a good villain, is because she's also
just
like
a kid,
and it's like it matches. You know, the other villains are funny, and like I said, Mojo's my favorite, but like she works so well as like a rival or a nemesis or whatever, because she's not even like I'm evil, I want to destroy whatever. She just like hates the Powerpuff Girls because they're better than her, so she just wants to prove them wrong, out of like petty jealousy. And like that intro episode with her is so funny, and it's so like cool. Like it actually has like cool fight scenes, with the characters like throwing out moves and blocking and dodging and everything, like very like Dragon Ball style, like fighting and everything. I don't know. Powerpuff Girls is such an interesting show because with Dexter, it has such a huge tail of influence afterwards that it's like easy to put a lot of importance on Dexter as like, oh, it's the most important Cartoon Network show and everything. Yeah. And Powerpuff Girls, it's less so, but there is there's a lot of like, it informs like the other Craig McCracken and Lauren Faust shows, like even My Little Pony, like you have like, oh, Blossom is Twilight Sparkle and Buttercup is Rainbow Dash and Bubbles is Fluttershy, like the characters like attach on, like they feel like, oh, I'm taking these characters and like moving them, to other things. And then like, I don't know, just the style and it feels a little bit more refined and more like what you imagine like that 90s, early 2000s Cartoon Network. Like I feel like you can draw a line easier from Powerpuff Girls to Billy and Mandy than you could like Dexter to Billy and Mandy, because that was still in the like Hanna-Barbera, like it had its own, like it had that like UPA anime kind of style to it, but like it was a little bit more Hanna-Barbera, whereas like this is starting to like really form the identity of what
Cartoon Network is. Yeah,
it's like Flapjack to Adventure Time, where it's like,
I also think outside of just like for what Cartoon Network is, I think it's there's not a mistake that every few months Powerpuff Girls is trending on Twitter and someone's doing fan art. I think like this show has such a good style and world to it that I think any artist, me included, and I said I wasn't going to do it, I'm probably going to do it once we get off call. You see the Powerpuff Girls and you see how like very distinct but open they are, and you go, I want to draw my own version. You don't want to redesign it to be better. You just want to know what artistic qualities you could get out of yourself drawing them. And like the world and everything. I think a great example of that is that when we go to brass tacks, the Rowdy Rough Boys are in like one episode. And everyone's drawing them every week.
Right.
Like, they're like... And the thing is, every time I see redesign of the Rowdy Rough Boys or the Powerpuff Girls, I'm like, this rules. I love this. I love the vibe we're going for here. We're doing great.
Yeah.
It's a show that feels creative, and it makes me as a viewer feel creative.
Yeah.
Absorbing
it's such a good luck charm of a show, like in a vibes way, because it's like, oh, you can, especially like in the 90s when things were a lot more like Boys Club, being like, here's a show that embraces cutesiness and girliness, and it's like it has like a heavy female cast of characters, but it's still really funny. It's still like a crossover hit with everybody. It's still like, Dexter's Lab may have had a larger influence, but like Dexter's Lab was not rebooted, multiple times.
Dexter's Lab didn't get an anime. Dexter's Lab didn't get an anime.
Yeah, exactly.
So
so Powerpuff Girls is just like such an amazing anomaly that I wish it could happen more often. Like I honestly do feel like the next time that like a show that is like a girl show has such a big crossover hit is My Little Pony. Like, in 2010, like that's the only other. And even then, like, there's like a level of like fakeness of like the fan base, the men who watched it. Like, no offense to men, sure,
everyone knows me. I'm always giving offense to men. But like there's like a level of like, well, this is for us now. But Powerpuff Girls, it seems like everyone just kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Even now on the internet, everyone is kind of like, this is not a boys cartoon. This is not a girls cartoon. This is just my childhood. And I can't see it happening now. And it makes me so sad.
Yeah. Like, I would love for it something like that to happen. I think like Disney is kind of close with their recent show, like with Amphibian Owl House, where they're like, okay, you have female main characters and everything like that, and like a lot of plots about that. But it's, I wonder if that was just like a flash in the pan, because then you have stuff like, I mean, I guess they all were canceled early, but like Haley's on It got canceled one season. Like it just had one season and then it's over. And that's definitely was my least favorite of like all the modern Disney shows. But like, it like I wonder what is the like outline reason, if like, because if it's like, oh, the network is saying, oh, we don't want like these shows that star like female characters are like less profitable or whatever, like that spells doom. But if it's unrelated to that, which I think it might be, then I think there's still a chance that we can get these shows. Because I honestly feel like they like people have it wrong in their head that it's like, oh, boys shows are more profitable because boys and girls will like a boy show, you know, like we'll buy boy toys and things like that.
Right.
Like the problem is they're not accounting for the fact that like if you make a girl show that's good enough, boys will watch it. So that's the same exact rationale being used in like the opposite direction, and it's like provably true. You can look at how many people like, you know, are still fans of stuff like Totally Spies or Winx Club, you know, from like those things that are like very girly, like in the like the fashion doll like peak of television, you know, in like the middle 2000s, like still are beloved shows across the board, you know. So it's just like, I mean, I'm not the first one to say it, but I think those the people making the decisions are kind of wrong-headed, perhaps. Like maybe they're
evil and sexist.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that
well, I
people
think
in charge of things are evil and sexist?
Yeah, I think part of the problem is they're not making cartoons in general that much anymore.
True.
We're not getting a lot of original
very fucking true.
series greenlit. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was cut out and talking over someone.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, that was, we were done. We were listening to what you were saying about the whole, you know, greenlit thing.
Yes. Yeah, I was doing research on this for a project I probably won't end up doing, but I was looking into how the Disney Chicken Little movie from like, 20 years ago, was supposed to have Chicken Little was going to be a girl, and like Michael Eisner was like, no, just what you were saying. Boys won't see a movie that stars a girl, but everyone will. But then the director, upon saying this, was like, well, then Frozen came out, and everyone went to see that movie, even though it was for girls. So I think, you know, sometimes that there are exceptions like that. Frozen, one of the biggest movies of all time, still. And
I mean, Lilo and Stitch, like
Lilo and Stitch, yeah,
just like a few years before that, it's just like,
right.
I know, I certainly related very hard to Lilo as like somebody who had like emotional and like that had to go to emotional therapy and classes like that Lilo probably should be going to, you know, like I really related to her. So it's like, of course, maybe everybody got in because Stitch is cool and whatever, but like the core heart of the movie is around
it's her sister. Yeah.
So it's like, it's such a like it's an excuse that doesn't work, because, you know, maybe it can be true if you want to like fudge the numbers, but that's like essentially what like the people in charge are doing, is that they aren't like basing their decisions off of reality. They have like an emotional response, and then they're using reality to justify
shaping it to what they are.
Right.
Yeah, to justify their choices, rather than like, they're not like cold logical computers that are like, that have no emotions. They are using their like emotional responses, and it's just like, you just see how ridiculously racist the people were about like Infinity Train, you know, that like Owen Dennis has talked about. And you see like, the show wasn't canceled because of the no child entry point thing. It was because they didn't like the show and wanted to find a reason to get rid of it, because like it made them uncomfortable. So
yeah,
Anyway, Powerpuff Girls is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's good. Wait, yeah, Powerpuff Girls is good.
Yeah, I mean, I love Powerpuff Girls.
Powerpuff Girls is good. Executives are stupid and sexist.
Yeah. I think that's
you know what?
good.
You know,
like,
just to wrap around and get all my Morgan things out there. Capitalism is killing art. There it is.
Yeah,
I've gotten all my Morganisms out. There we go.
Another hot scolding take. Putting it out there
that no one existing right now could possibly agree with.
Yeah.
No one existing in our world could agree with it at all.
But,
do you guys want to talk about the later seasons a little bit?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Before we wrap up, like.
Yeah.
We keep it sweet. My lawyer has informed me I'm not allowed to talk about Chris Savino, so I'm gonna let you guys go. My lawyer she's looking at me right now. She's just giving me like the little hand across the throat, saying, "Do not talk about Chris Savino." So I'm gonna just let you guys have that. Yeah.
What episodes did you watch?
I'm usually pretty positive when it comes to what I want to put online, and in terms of discussing media on the internet. But when an episode ends, I don't feel very good about it, and then I see producer Chris Savino, I'm like, I can kind of cut loose on this one. Yeah. So I ended up watching, I don't know, like 5 episodes from these 2 seasons, and I realized I wrote in my notes, I watched a full half hour and there was no crime fighting. Which is not a good sign in a superhero show.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. Like, I've said this before with Chris. I'm sorry we're going on the fucking Chris Savino. I'm sorry, people on YouTube, that we're talking about Chris Savino again. But, like...
I'm not.
Yeah. But, like, I think he's a talented guy in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But there's so... Like, I also kind of think, just, like, looking at his original projects, that he's... just not quite at the same level of like good ideas as like Craig McCracken and everything. I feel like, because here's the thing, I know Craig McCracken was still involved in some way, like in the later seasons of Powerpuff Girls, but I bet he was a lot more involved with Foster's, like developing that than he was really paying attention to Powerpuff Girls. And same thing with like Gendy and like Clone Wars and Samurai Jack, with the Dexter's like later seasons, and it's just like the vibes are just like off, it just like doesn't feel like the show anymore. And like there are like I don't know, it's easy to compare it to like other things that I know about, but like it really does kind of feel like The Simpsons, where it's like, oh, you kind of get to season 9 and 10, and you immediately sort of notice that it's like going in a direction, and like it's not all bad, but it's just you kind of see the shift happening.
So I think you're right. They set him up for failure in a way that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give him grace. I'm going to give him grace here. Mm-hmm. I think having someone like Chris Savino, like, who is talented, worked on a lot of cartoons, take over the reins of Dexter's Lab or Powerpuff Girls. First of all, if I was given that job, I might say fuck no.
Yeah.
Like, first of all. But, like, it's just, I don't know. These specifically Powerpuff Girls is so deeply ingrained in, like, a cartoon comedy version of the Monster of the Week format and stuff like that if you get someone in who doesn't get those, I'm assuming he doesn't get those, the show's gonna feel off. Like, even though we get recurring villains, every season before this, we get a new one-off villain that feels strange.
Yeah.
Because that's the vibe. This is a show that is inspired by Marvel and DC Comics, that's inspired by Ultraman and Astro Boy and stuff like that, right? If you don't know those things in, out, and sideways, how the fuck are they expecting you to keep it going?
Yeah, and I think with Chris, it's like, it's just that classic thing of sometimes somebody who is a good storyboard writer or a storyboard artist is not necessarily a good showrunner because like it's a different set of skills, and it's a different, like, if you're like creating the tone and creating the style and everything of the show going forward, because it's like I'm thinking in my head, like, why is it that with Chris Savino, there are many episodes of Dexter's Lab and things like that, and like shows that he's like worked on that I'm like, okay, this is funny, this is good stuff. And then when he does like a Helmsa project like Flintstones on the Rocks, like the later seasons of Dexter's Lab and Powerpuff Girls and Loud House and Faux Paws and whatever, it's just like, I just don't like it at all. Like, it's just like not good at all. And it's just like,
it's like some people are made to be collaborators.
Yeah.
Like they're made to be that person that's with you and helping to get the joke further, not the one that like is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to shit on Chris Savino. I do feel bad, like, because like it's fine. Like,
I think we're like
my ex
I think we're done with all of
Bukowski.
his show. Like, I think we're outside of the realm of his influence now that we're doing that. Like, unless
it's me holding up my shackled free hands, like I'm free.
I don't want to defend his output in terms of the shows he's done, but I will say I think I will take his Powerpuff seasons over his Dexter seasons.
Yeah.
In general,
hard agree. Because it at least looks like Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in a bit, and I will say I think the I guess maybe like the first season or so that he worked on the Loud House, it's pretty good. I don't like love that show, but I think it's a show. I think it works. I think it's pretty funny, and it laid a really good foundation for a show that keep going. And I know people have an issues with the Loud. People have always had issues with the Loud House, but I'm now hearing that it's got like a classic seasons, modern seasons thing going on.
Oh yeah,
because it's lasted so long.
Oh my god, that is right. It's been 8 years.
Yes,
right. Like,
yes, I'm not very informed on that, but I think you have to give him some sort of credit. For
and that's
creating
what I was saying
a pretty formulaic show like the Loud House. The foundation.
I'm not
a
huge fan. Like, during that era, I was definitely like, I was especially like bitter towards the Loud House because of Harvey Beaks.
Oh,
I was like such a big fan of that, and then like, it feels like that show got shit canned, and then they're like, here's the new hotness, and it was just like it just felt very generic to me. But like, I'm not gonna like get on people's ass for being like, obviously like it is so popular that it's hard for me to deny its qualities, and like. With the Loud, like, and I won't blame the Loud House for having like a bad, like the creator being a bad person, because like I love Clarence and like Skylar Page was not a good person, but like, that goes without saying, and like Spencer Rothbell, like I feel like if people think of Clarence, they think of him first.
Yeah, so much so he's even on Twitter doing like $10 voice acting things, and it's really good,
which is great.
But yeah, I think we gave a fair go at Powerpuff Girls.
Well, we didn't really talk about the episodes that Chris Savino showrun. I mean, I going through my notes. I think one of the biggest thing is that it's not on sales anymore. And the redesigned art style, the post-movie art style that they have going on, is just too digital. I really liked just how, I don't know, not perfect, a little rough, the cell animation was. Having the more digital backgrounds, and then they really go hard on like the visual effects. I watched because it's like one of my favorite episodes, not because it really works, but because it's just so weird and out there. The music, the rock opera episode, See Me, Feel Me, Know Me, and how there's so many super digital, superimposed effects in that. And some of them should not be there because I can see the flashing lights
I think
being
it was
an issue.
I think it was a banned episode because
yes.
of that. Like,
I think that. I mean, apparently that wasn't the reason, but I can't see it not being some part of the reason because it's like intense flashing lights for like 30 seconds. I one episode I watched that had some like pretty impressive CGI for like a 2002 2003 episode was the one where they bring back Dynamo, and the whole episode is the girls just fight the giant Dynamo mech for the whole episode, and it's cool. It's like the action choreography is pretty cool, but I wrote, and this is like a pedantic, nerdy note, but it's like a big storytelling thing. Is like, well, where's the internal conflict? Like, what's the reason why I should care about these characters?
I feel like a lot of those later episodes, a lot of like the later episodes involve bringing back characters and stuff without having a plan. It feels like listen, I know I said the writer rep was only in one episode. That's not technically true because they come back like twice in like the later 2 seasons, but they just aren't as good episodes.
Right.
Like I don't know. Like I think like oh, Seduce is back, but like she just has a different vibe now. I'm like, I don't know. I think every time a character comes back in Powerpuff Girls, it seems very thought out before. And now they're just back because, like, this is a character that makes you feel like you're watching Powerpuff Girls. Like, there are some villains who just aren't made to be reoccurring every 3 episodes.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, you know, as much crap as people over... Like, I agree that, like, later 2 seasons of Powerpuff Girls are generally, like, better. Like, they represent the whole better. Like, they aren't like Dexter, where it like is like a different show. Like, it just feels like a completely different show with a different like creative voice and everything. And I would say like Fight Before Christmas is like, you know, is like a really good special because it is very princess focused, and it's, you know, and she has a good motivation with like the whole like being on the naughty list and everything. But like, yeah, I do kind of agree that like, it's not that these are like the worst things ever. It just feels like it's spinning its wheels like at a certain point, you know, and it's just like, okay, we like, this is mildly funny, but we kind of, I got it. Like, I get the show. Like, we don't need, like, it's not the kind of show that I feel like needs to be like, even like 4 seasons seems like a little bit too much for Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, like that 4th season. I think all those episodes are probably pretty good. Didn't rewatch all of them, but that thing is like 7 out of the 13 episodes are half hour, which I always thought was strange. But you can kind of see them like, well, if we only do, if we do all these half hour episodes, we don't have to think of extra stories. And I'm sure they were doing the movie too. I'm sure that made production easier.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, I agree that it's just you know, it has its problems, but it is like there's gems in there. There's like good stuff in there, and like even with Dexter, like there's still like good or funny episodes or whatever in the later seasons. It's just like it's just a lot worse looking. It's just like Dexter is so, especially like Ego Trip and, you know, like the season 2 finale and everything are just like so glorious looking that it's just like going from that to like very standard sort of digital, early digital art, and everything. You know, it is like, you know, like, yeah, I feel like a show like Billy and Mandy is like very digitally, especially like as it goes on, it gets like very like just digital VFX and everything, but it just fits that show because it's like always kind of looked like that, except for like the very early episodes. You know, same thing with like SpongeBob. Like, I feel like first season, you know, is like cells and everything, and then like that has a very distinct look to it. But like when people think of SpongeBob, they usually think of like season 3. You know, and things like that. Like, as far as like the look of classic SpongeBob. You know, they don't necessarily look at the very first season for that. So,
and with SpongeBob, I think it helps that it's got a lot of these early digital artifacts, because the show is kind of very mixed media, where it's like, yeah, it's fine if you have a random CGI. Patrick's Rock is randomly CGI, because then there'll be a live action cutaway later in the episode, so it'll fit the aesthetic better than in season 5 Powerpuff Girls, where you go to him's lair and there's like a VHS static effect and all these live action stock videos in his lair, because that's what they wanted to do. I don't know why it looks like that. I thought it was funnier when him's lair was just, isn't it like, I didn't rewatch the one where they're doing prank calls and it's just him jazzercising. It's just like remind me what it looks like. It's just like his house. He has like an apartment or something.
Yeah, I think so. I also did not rewatch that episode, so I don't know for sure. But that sounds right, because it is like, it is just like a mundane sort of like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if the devil like lived. By the way, gotta say, after Cow and Chicken, much better devil in this this show than the red guy in Cow
Honestly,
and Chicken.
there are two devils, because Buttercup becomes a Spawn parody, and there's a part where she disappears, and she's just straight up talking to like the real devil, who gives her Spawn powers. It's
but like
rad.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about in the Cow and Chicken episode that it's like, I guess it's kind of funny that Satan is in the show, but like, what's his purpose in the show? Like, what is his deal?
It's so Charlie Adler can just be there and do a really funny voice.
Yeah.
I also think the bit of he's so evil we can't even say his name.
Yeah.
We can't talk about who he is, so we just call him him. That's already a better joke than anything Cow and Chicken did.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've already beat them.
Yeah, it's kind of giving pronouns a bad name, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It works.
His name, it's literally a pronoun.
It's literally a pronoun.
Yeah, that's his...
When Republicans are stupid say, I don't have pronouns, they mean him.
Yeah.
They don't have him somewhere hidden off. And I think that's a bummer, because he rules.
Yeah. All right, I think, is there anything else that we haven't touched on?
The one thing, and I think this is kind of like, not like a silver lining, but I think you can see a few bits in those later seasons of Powerpuff Girls that hint towards the next generation of Cartoon Network, because I saw Thurt Van Orman's name as the writer storyboard artist for a couple episodes. There's one where the girls are trying to find, they have a missing baby, they're trying to find who's this baby's mother. And then they're like, Bubbles is like, well, I thought that person was the baby's mother, and it's this giant woman in a diaper, just spontaneously, and I'm like, that's a super flapjack joke. So you can kind of see the beginnings of that sensibility forming in like the one joke in that episode. Nothing else in that episode was very flapjacky, but I think that's interesting. Yeah. I think it's interesting that there is a tiny connective tissue between the old and new guard of Cartoon Network.
We talk about that all the time, how there's just so many examples of, man, everyone worked on everything. Everyone trained under somebody, you know? We're coming, we're going. Like
I felt that when I was watching through Camp Lazlo. Everybody get excited for the Camp Lazlo episode in like a year or whatever. But the J.G. Quintel episodes, I was like, especially like a lot of the expressions, I was like, oh my God, they're like, he's turning, like Lazlo is like turning into Mordecai, you know, like in the like that's like the way that he like talks, or like his brain operates, and like certain, like it just feels like in line with where like regular show is. You know, you can like see the start of that like in some of his episodes, and like just how dumb the plots are in like the specific way that they're dumb in like that episode. Like I feel like Camp Lazlo is an underrated, like very important show, because it also did have Thoreau in it, you know, and then like JG and Thoreau went on for Flapjack, and like I don't know, that is like a super fun thing to see. I mean, it was like really cool watching Dexter and being like, oh, this is Butch Hartman and Seth MacFarlane, you know, working on though. And then like we haven't like recorded the episode yet, but like the Seth MacFarlane episodes of Johnny Bravo are like super, like it's like 2 steps removed from like early Family Guy, you know, like
like I don't know, I don't know, cartoons are cool. I went on this tirade when we did Space Ghost, but cartoons are cool. I love that people work. I love people working. I love seeing inspiration for people. It's like it's one of the things in media that you can most see it, that like you could go. I know there's like we had off model discourse forever fucking ago. And it's always happening. Yeah. But I like when a model's a little different because you could tell who worked on this one. Right. I think that rules. Yeah. I think it's the best.
Yeah, it's someone's personal touch in every drawing or in every expression. Even if you model something in a really specific way in CG, especially with how that.
Oh yeah, I mean like going through.
But yes.
OKKO.
Yeah.
Like OKKO is like like that's like they designed it that way, but like the second I start an episode, I'm like Mira Entra. I'm able to be like, oh, that's like I know who boarded this episode, like the two people that boarded this episode before the title card even shows up because of like, oh, they got one eye is like a little bit taller than the other eye. That's Parker Simmons. Like I know that's like that's how he draws. And like that's just like such a I don't know. It's like a lot of fun, and I think like I'm glad shows like OKKO exist that are sort of like doing that and like pointing out the like those different styles and everything. But anyway, we're done talking about Powerpuff Girls. Yep. We got to wrap this up. Nick, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, experience. This is great.
You're a buffoon now, baby.
Yeah. It's like I definitely hope I can get a few other people in like the cartoon disco. I mean, I know Tariq agreed, and I'm having this on recording for Mike, Lou, and Og. So, I mean, I did talk to him afterwards, and we set a date and everything. So, I think it's like set in stone or whatever, but I'm just saying like Mike, Lou, and Og, everybody prepare yourself. But
on the island, so we gotta
on the island where nobody knows. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have anything to plug?
The only thing I have to plug is I just put a video out on this is adjacent, the Fairly Odd Parents reboot that's been coming out on Nickelodeon. So another late 90s, early 2000s cartoon. And it has a lot of that, a lot of the same kid empowerment energy, but it's a little grounded and down to earth. But yeah, I did a lot of research in the video, and I haven't posted in like 5 months on YouTube. So you should check that out. So I can, I was gonna say something. I was gonna like make something up, but no, I would like money. I would like the ad revenue from that video, please. So that would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say that I did enjoy that video. As somebody who hasn't watched the new FOP yet, I enjoyed like my first experience being.
Oh, fuck off! Don't call it that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Shut up. That's the FOP. What the?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Whatever. Fuck off. Go ahead. Keep going.
But as I haven't watched it. But I was like Lindsay Katai being involved. I was like, okay, I'm actually pretty interested in this because I love Infinity Train, and like I wanted to check it out, and that kind of like gave me that. And then like, not to call out your fan base, but there was a couple comments in that video that brought me back to 2020 with the Thundercats Roar video.
Yeah, I mean, no, I had the exact same reaction. Someone's like, I can't believe Nick is defending this cartoon. And I'm like, this isn't even in the same
realm of it.
Yeah, realm of Thundercats
this
Roar.
Has
this is like a lot more faithful to the original. Is it just because it's a new show? I mean, I know certain reasons why people have these gut reactions, which the video jokes about. But yeah, no, I know I had to hold myself from being like titling the video being like, oh my god, the Fairly Odd Parents reboot better than the original, because I'm like, people are gonna be like, oh, people are gonna catch on to the fact that I am usually pretty positive when it comes to a lot of these reboots, because they happen to be good. Like Thundercats Roar, or like the new Clone High is another one that but that's one where I haven't seen a ton of positive reactions, and I'm watching and I'm like, yeah, I really love this. I don't know what everyone else is about, what's going on.
Yeah,
but anything besides the YouTube channel?
Oh no. But yeah, gonna keep making videos, and I don't know. Thank you guys for having me on. It was a pleasure to just revisit Powerpuff Girls and talk about it for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was absolutely a lot of fun. I felt like just because like we bonded over like Wander Over Yonder and things like that. Like I felt like perfect sort of bow on that to be like, all right, I gotta get you for Powerpuff Girls. Like I feel like that's the perfect show for you. And thankfully, everything worked out great. But Morgan, what about you? What do you got to?
Yeah, I really don't have anything to plug at the moment. I'm working on a project, but it's not gonna come out yet.
Okay.
So I gotta do stuff. Script writing is hard. You can find me on the internet at Girl Next Vor, on Tumblr and Blue Sky if it hasn't been destroyed yet. I'm trying. I'll get to it eventually.
Yeah.
And
what's that
also,
other one that just showed up that everybody wants us to go to now? What's the Kara?
What are you talking about?
Kara,
the art
yeah.
one? Kara? Yeah. It's like art. It's ArtStation, but good, I guess.
Okay.
Listen. If I ever go over there, God forbid, maybe I'll post art there and not posting because I talk too fucking much.
Yeah.
I'm also on Twitter. Or fuck you, don't say it's true. I'm also on Twitter, where it's a secret. You have to find me. Good luck. It's not hard, but you got to find me. It's a little game. It's like the Da Vinci Code.
You said this at the end of a podcast, and then I found you, so it can be
pretty
solved.
easily.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that's because you are basically Indiana Jones of posting. You did it. You ran past the boulder and you found my account.
Yeah.
You traded it out with a bag of sand. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I post about a lot of stuff, and I talk about wrestling. I draw sometimes. That's it. Yeah.
So, first of all, I want to get this and other podcasts. If you're listening to this on the free feed and you want to get that Johnny Bravo or Mike Lewinog episode, I don't know which one is going to be next, 1 week early. Like, if you want to get it right now and you're listening to this on YouTube, go on over to It's Only Magic, patreon.com. $5 level, you can get this a week early. You can get Lakewood Podcast Turbo, which is on a bit of hiatus because of my co-host Buster is off at a wedding in Egypt right now, so pretty far away. You know, he's checking out the pyramids and all that stuff, and you know, hanging out with Yugi or whatever's going on. And then, but at the $1 level, you can still get cool stuff. You still get Wow Cool Ropod, which is me and my friend Wayne, aka Bolt Creature on Twitter, going through, and we do 5-minute episodes reviewing every single robot in existence. Just like we just pick a random robot and we just talk about it for like 5 to 10 minutes and then move on. It's a lot of fun. So you can get that at $1. You can get, whenever we make Shit Shooters, which is just the off-topic, you know, podcast that I have, that will be at the $1 level. We just haven't done it, like, because Cody also, you know, who I do the Stevens Kings with, he's been very busy and his laptop exploded, so like that is also on hiatus. So Cartoon Buffoons came in clutch. Like, I'm very glad that I came up with the show right before my other
yet
co-hosts,
again I have defeated Cody. I
was gonna say, right before my other co-hosts like either left the country or, you know, their computers exploded and, you know, they're busy and everything. But yeah, please check that out if you want to support me. And if you want to get these on the free feed, go over to my YouTube channel, It's Only Magic. And if you want to check out some of my videos, go on there, learn about Homestar Runner or
OKKO,
Camp Laszlo, like I talked about, you know, and did a big OKKO video a few years ago. That was like extremely, that like drained my soul energy away. I want to say, like, making
it is
that, just because
really
like
good though. So.
Yeah, just because like the amount of times I was like, okay, this is a 5-second clip. There's no way it can get copyright claimed, and it's like, no, it was 5.2 seconds, so boom, gotta edit it again. Like, god damn it. There's so much of that going on for like a couple days that I was just like, got it out.
Yeah.
But thankfully, like, it had a good reception. I still get like really nice comments from it to this day, and like even some of the crew like saw it and gave me a big thumbs up, which was nice.
Oh yeah, I love that
anyway,
video.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I voted for your video on that, like, the best video of the year thing. Like, I voted for your Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh, right, for the
video.
Whatever the Toonies thing on
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah.
Which I think I won that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That and
awesome.
one of the collabs I did with the Real Gems. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love your videos. I think I've said that to you, but maybe not publicly.
Yeah, sure. But that is, I very much appreciate it. I've just like, I'll say this, not to get too personal, but both like the past couple of years have been really rough for me. So like,
yeah,
that has kind of like, I've not been able to. I've gotten a few videos out here and there like the past couple of years, like the past year or so, but it's been hard to like get the time and energy and like to just like sit down and watch something and then write about it. I think
write a script.
I have some ideas that I want to get to and some shows that like might inspire me to like get to it, but for now I'm fine this being my main creative outlet for the time being, but all right, that'll do it for this episode of Cartoon Buffoons. Join us next time as we talk about another cartoon. Again, it's either Johnny Bravo or Mike Loon Og. So see you next time.
Maybe.
Yeah.